So today I'm going to be covering a couple of topics. The first one being an update on my portfolio and in terms of the dividends that I received throughout May. And also on Freetrade, they had a recent fundraise on Crowdcube, so we're going to be talking about their performance there. So on the Trading212 platform, I have a portfolio value of close to £8,000. We can see I have £7,917 invested, and I have some remaining funds that I will be purchasing shares in the near future. So throughout the month, I receive dividends. And so some companies every 3 months pay these dividends out, and other times it's every month. And so I track the performance every single month. And previously I spoke about in April having £4.92 as the dividend payout for the month. And at that time I had an account value of slightly over £6,000. Now I did mention that a lot of the shares that I brought were not accounted for in terms of the dividend payouts. And that's because I missed that time. So I was very much aware that the following month I would receive a lot more, and this £6,000 worth would generate more dividends. And so looking at May, we can see that I received £27.20 in terms of dividends, with an account value of slightly under £8,000. So in effect, I've been putting money into my Train212 account. I've been purchasing stocks, and in return, I've seen either an increase or decrease in the capital price. But in return, I've been receiving dividends, which I haven't had to work any harder. And so this is as passive income gets. Assuming the companies that I have brought continue to pay out dividends at the same rate, then for the rest of the time that I hold these shares, I will receive this form of income. Now, it's not to say that individuals that work a 9-to-5 job shouldn't do so. I myself work a standard job as well, and it's definitely not a 9-to-5, it's more of a 12-hour period every day. But the point I'm making is, when I have my day job, I don't want to be holding my breath and waiting for a pay rise to take place. The Trading212 platform is a mechanism where I can have this truly passive income. At the moment, it's at the early stages, but in the future, I hope to receive £100 plus every month in the form of passive income. So it's definitely a great feeling to receive free money effectively. Now, at the moment, I reinvest all of those dividends. That is how I can reach my goals a lot faster. But in the future, I'll be able to tap out of those dividends and then start spending the money should I wish to. But as I say, right now, I'm just reinvesting those dividends manually. And in the near future, Trading212 will have the drip, and that will allow me to automate the reinvestment process. But for now, it's manual, and that's not a problem. So it's taken a bit of time with a portfolio value close to the £8,000. Some may argue that the dividends received are such small numbers, and they are. But this is a much bigger plan, and it's a long-term strategy that will effectively pay for itself in the future. And contrasting back to 8 months ago when I first deposited my £30, we now receive close to that figure every single month, which is very nice indeed. So moving on to Crowdcube, which is a platform that allows you to invest in very early stage startup companies. Now on the screen I have Freetrade, which has used Crowdcube several times to raise funds. And I invested in Freetrade from one of the very first investment rounds, and I actually participated in this funding round as well. Now I should say that Crowdcube has a lot of companies that don't succeed. There's been a few companies where I've put a very small amount of money, and within a year they've been brought out by another company, and you don't even make the initial investment that you paid into initially. But there's a few companies out there that potentially can make it big in the future. I've always had my eye on Freetrade, and I've probably been more critical than other individuals, given that I invest a somewhat significant amount in the company. Now you're probably thinking, why don't I use Freetrade as my primary mechanism to invest? And in the early days I did, but I quickly switched over to the Trading212 platform just because it suited my needs a lot more, and Freetrade just didn't have the features that I was looking for. Now Freetrade has enabled fractional shares, So they are pushing out new features, which is great to see. They're definitely behind, in my opinion, compared to Trading 212. We're going to see the drip feature on Trading 212. And this is obvious because they have released the trade by value feature rather than just trading by a stock or a fraction of a stock. So that's not to say Freetrade will not have these features in the future. They are definitely doing well in terms of the number of users on the platform, which is great to see. And in terms of the investors, with this round, for instance, over 6,000 investors, and they overfunded at £6.7 million. So some of the stats here, as I said, with an increase in customers, they've got a total of 150,000 customers, which equates to 500% growth. Now, it'd be good to see that number reach in the millions in the future. We're probably looking at a couple of years before that happens. But what's nice to see is that they've got the share price listed. So when I first invested in this company, the share price was extremely low. I think it was around like 10-20 pence. And even then, that price wasn't really materialized. And so every time there's a new fundraise, the price per share becomes more expensive. But as an investor, that's what we want to see. We don't want to put a whole heap sum of money the first round for the company to not survive. And so our initial investment, the price per share increases, but there's also more shares issued, which causes a liquidation in the share ownership that you have. And that's why, like myself, I will try to buy more of the share at a higher price just to prevent that liquidation from happening. And it's also a way of hedging our bets. Now, I rarely invest in beginner stage companies, but I was definitely a big fan of Freetrade. And obviously, I hope that they do well because I'm an investor in the company. But I do want to see more. I hope to see that there'll be a desktop way to trade in the future. They've improved in terms of their spot rate trades. And I think a lot of that is to try to raise their standards to the likes of Trading 212. But with all things said, it's very positive to see that the investors are really active. We've got customers that love the platform. There's definitely a lot of positives to take, and I expect there'll be more features in the future that will satisfy other investors out there. So I've mentioned the likes of Trading 212 and Freetrade. I'm curious for those that follow and watch my channel, which company are you mostly interested in investing with? So feel free to leave a comment in the section below. And with that said, I'll catch you in the next one.